July 25, 1944. The mist lingered over the hedgerows of Normandy. It was just after dawn when General Fritz Berline, the commanding officer of the German Panzer Division, raised his binoculars to his eyes. After 6 weeks of constant artillery bombardment since D-Day, the sudden silence felt more ominous than peaceful. Little did Berline know, this brief stillness was the calm before a storm, one that would overwhelm his forces in a way he could not have imagined. Veterans of the famed Africa Corps and hardened through brutal campaigns in Russia and North Africa, the German forces had endured some of the fiercest artillery barrages in military history. They had faced Soviet artillery that seemed to shake the earth itself, and they had endured the British bombardments at El Alamein. Yet nothing could have prepared them for what would happen next. At exactly 09:37 hours on that fateful morning, a single moment that would change the course of the battle in Normandy forever. At 09:37, over 1,000 American artillery pieces spread across miles of terrain, fired in perfect synchronization. The shells, ranging from 105mm howitzers to 240mm giant guns, fired not in sequence, but all at once. Each of these artillery pieces had been calculated to fire their shells at exactly the right moment, ensuring that they would all arrive at the target simultaneously. It wasn't just about firing a lot of shells. This was about timing, mathematical precision that would devastate the German forces. To understand how this momentous strike unfolded, we need to explore the revolutionary concept of time on target. In the years leading up to World War II, artillery had followed a predictable rhythm. Napoleon's great artillery batteries fired in sequence. In World War I, rolling barrages moved ahead of infantry, firing at predetermined rates. The Germans had perfected their own artillery doctrine, Schwerpunkt, focused on rapid concentration of fire at key points. Their forward observers and commanders could quickly adjust fire, overwhelming enemy defenses. But what they didn't know was that the Americans were learning, adapting, and rethinking artillery in ways the Germans had never imagined. The Americans, influenced by industrial management principles, began to see artillery as a system, an interconnected network rather than isolated batteries. The idea of time on target required 4 crucial innovations but would ultimately leave the Germans in the dust. First, the forward observer system was developed. Unlike the Germans, who relied on individual batteries, American forward observers could call upon entire artillery groups, even corps-level assets, using advanced SCR-619 radios, which allowed for real-time communication with fire direction centers miles behind the lines. The second innovation was the Fire Direction Center, FDC, a hub where trained personnel would use firing tables, slide rules, and other tools to compute firing solutions for multiple batteries. The third was the communication network. In Normandy, American forces laid over 3,000 miles of telephone wire in a month, ensuring that fire missions could be transmitted instantly to dozens of batteries. The fourth, and perhaps most underappreciated innovation, was standardization. All American ammunition, whether produced in Pennsylvania or California, was manufactured to identical specifications. This allowed artillery pieces to fire shells with predictable ballistic characteristics, making it possible to calculate firing solutions with incredible accuracy. In contrast, the Germans faced growing problems with their production lines. Their ammunition, often manufactured by slave labor in dispersed locations, lacked the consistency of the American standard. This disparity in production quality had a direct impact on the precision of their artillery fire. Operation Cobra, launched on July 25, 1944, marked the full unveiling of American time-on-target capabilities. General Omar Bradley had assembled the largest concentration of artillery ever seen on the Western Front. Over 1,000 guns, ready to fire in perfect synchronization. Submerged. As the bombs dropped from American bombers, The German defenders were already reeling. But what followed was nothing short of devastating. A coordinated barrage of 170,000 shells, with shells arriving at the same moment from distances ranging from 5,000 to 25,000 yards. The result was catastrophic. Panzer, which had entered Normandy with 14,000 men and 190 tanks, ceased to exist as a fighting force. General Fritz Berline, who had once been so confident in his panzer forces, would later describe the aftermath in haunting terms. Deposition Berline's report became infamous. He said, "My front lines look like the face of the moon, and at least 70% of my troops are out of action, dead, wounded, crazed, or numbed." The German forces had not been defeated by superior soldiers or tactics. They had been overwhelmed by the industrial precision of the American artillery system. What the Germans failed to understand was the sheer mathematical complexity that went into time on target. To make shells from different guns arrive together required not only precise measurements of distance and velocity, but also accounting for wind speed, air temperature, and the rotation of the Earth. As the war continued, German officers began to recognize the true scope of the American artillery advantage. They had understood the mathematics of timing, but lacked the infrastructure to replicate the system. While the Americans mass-produced not just weapons, but also trained personnel, the Germans struggled with inconsistent ammunition and disrupted production lines. Forged, the Americans have developed a system of artillery concentration that exceeds anything we imagined possible. Time on target would continue to evolve throughout the war, and by the time American forces were pushing into Germany, the technique had reached its zenith. In March 1945, American artillery achieved unprecedented levels of coordination during the Rhine crossing, firing 65,000 tons of ammunition in a single month, with each barrage hitting German positions with pinpoint accuracy. Disproportionate. What the Germans eventually realized was that victory in modern warfare would no longer come from superior soldiers or tactics alone. It would come from the application of industrial power, systems, coordination, and precision. The legacy of time on target was not just in its firepower, but in how it revolutionized military doctrine around the world. Today, every coordinated military operation owes something to the revolution that time on target represented. A revolution that changed the very nature of warfare, making industrial.